history one. When the circus comes to town, they park their cars right there on those tracks. Now the circus is gone. You all know that. The March was the last time they came to Cincinnati. When they did, we stopped our train right here, and I invited 3 of their train masters to come on and talk to each one of our dining cars about life on a circus train. And our passengers loved it. But while they were doing that, my partner and I went out and cherry-picked the best car in their consist because we knew the next month they were going to be auctioning them off. So we put in a bid on the one that we wanted, and we won it. And it arrived in our Norwood yard about a month and a half ago. So in 2018, our little performance car that you'll see will be replaced. We're shipping it to Lebanon, and our new circus car that's air conditioned and much larger and all freshly remodeled will be our new performance car. And we'll have a dedication inside of the Greatest Show on Earth logo and all that stuff. So we're really trying to pay homage to that. And when they found out that it was the band car, the band had been in that car from 1960 all the way through, the different versions of the band. All these band members on Facebook started finding out we own the car now, so they're all wanting to travel to Cincinnati to see the car. Of the Purple Heart. They gave 3 of them in the Revolutionary War. He was the first one. He was from Cincinnati. In the late 1800s is where Cincinnati was the 3rd largest manufacturer of paddle wheelers and steam boats. That's where they made them. They were the 3rd largest ones. So Mr. Stewart, knowing this, took his rail line and named it the Fullerton Railroad. And the reason he did that, because he gets freight cars here doing barge and rail, is because he didn't want his land to be taken by eminent domain by the city of Cincinnati, but condos there. And the laws are on the books for the railroad that if you are a railroad, towns like Cincinnati cannot take your land by eminent domain. That's why that land has never been redeveloped. It's always the way it was from the late 1800s all the way till today. But that, and also when we passed back by Jeff Ruby's precinct, you saw all those houses that had all the gingerbread on them. The reason they've got that gingerbread look is because the craftsmen that built the boats down here in the late 1800s built their ship captains' houses down in the Columbia-Tusculum area and put all that gingerbread on it. That's the reason they did that. So we're going to pull down here and stop. This is the same place we're going to be coming Sunday night when we come down here and stop for the fireworks. We're hauling 700 people down to the fireworks Sunday night. And they're getting a highlight. And you'll be getting your wonderful desserts by that time. So thanks. We'll see you then.
All the ties.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice. Pretty nice.
First off, I'll start by showing you what everything is. This is the brakes. This is the automatic brake. What this does is it takes air, when you apply it, it takes air out of the system to the cars. So this controls the air brakes on the train cars. It'll also activate the engine air brakes, but you can release them by pushing down like this. And then this right here is a independent brake, and it controls only the engine. So if you want to just apply brakes to the engine, use this one.
So like engine braking, let the transmission slow you down.
Well, this is just air brakes. They're just like brake shoes. What you're talking about is a dynamic brake.
Yeah.
This
And what's the name? What's the classification of this engine?
This is just like what you would call a yard engine. So,
It's a GP or
help me on that one.
the model?
I forget which one it is. It was owned by Nickel Plate, so it's an original Nickel Plate engine.
Ah, okay.
And they,
So from Nebraska.
and if anybody wants to pull this, they can. This is the horn. Does anybody want to pull? You got your bell right here. Then on this engine, it has a gyro light, which is a pretty unique thing.
Gyro light.
If you go out the front, I'll leave it on, so when you just walk up the front, just look up, and it spins around.
So give it
It makes the lights go like that.
okay, so it's more for warning than it is
Yeah.
for seeing.
And then, real quick, this is we have to look at on the way we come into work. This is a track horn. This is our authority to operate on this track horn. But as you can see, it's not the most pleasant place.
No.
But even on the newer engines, we try not to use it because they have chemical toilets, so it's got like stuff that you slosh back. In the old days, they had 5-man crews, now they have 2. Let me know when crossing is protected. You know, it's all there's a guy driving along. It's protected across.
Yes, this.
Bragging about it. How, what a,
Everybody follows along. Like I said, it becomes very convoluted, but it makes a lot of sense if you follow along. We are stopping our train right now, and we'll be stopping it underneath that pedestrian walkway that you see going across in the top picture. Now, before I forget it, the people on this side will put their shades all the way up, because that's the side the attraction is on. I want the folks over here to be able to see it.
I think I see everybody.
Don't worry about that shade, it's all right. Okay, is everybody with me so far? What you're looking at is the Torrance Street Station taken in 1927. Torrance Street Station taken in 1927. This was a Pennsylvania Railroad station, built in the late 1800s. It was built only 2 miles from downtown Cincinnati from what was called the Panhandle Station. There was a station on the corner of the Purple People Bridge on Pearl Street that was a big Queen Anne style station that served downtown Cincinnati. But they built this one only 2 miles away from Cincinnati. The reason they built this one is for 2 reasons. Number one, there was a law in Cincinnati that said locomotives were not allowed to come into the city because they scared the horses. So they would come to this station, stop right where we're stopped now, turn the locomotive off, and hook a team of horses to the front of the locomotive and pull the train the last 2 miles in. True story. The second reason they built this station here is because the rich people that lived up on the hill in Walnut Hills did not want to have to travel that whole 2 miles down to Cincinnati. So one of those rich guys up there was a guy by the name of William Howard Taft, the president from Cincinnati. Now earlier in 1903, President McKinley came to town on this very track. Sat right where we are on a heavyweight car and spoke to thousands of Cincinnatians that came out to Eastern Avenue over here, right in front of St. Rose's Church. St. Rose's Church is still there, and the foundation that you see, that white foundation in the top picture, is still there. The station on both sides of the track has been torn down, but the foundation is still there. Now, here's where our story becomes a little bit convoluted. Follow your red arrows down to the second picture, down below. That is taking you to a 2.5-story tall terracotta sculpture. That terracotta sculpture You see where it was? It was on the retaining wall under the pedestrian walkway that holds up Columbia Parkway on that side of the train. Where did that sculpture come from? Now flip your page. Second picture down, you see the 4 red circles. That station you're looking at is the Broad Street station in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, taken in 1895. At the time that that station was built, it was the largest passenger terminal in the world. 15 tracks wide came into that car park. They hired a guy by the name of Carl Bitter out of New York, a famous sculptor of the day, in 1895, to do a bunch of marble reliefs that were in the station. But more importantly for our story, to make 10 terracotta sculptures that to put on the car barn, 3.5 stories tall, up high, that you see in a picture there. But those 10 terracotta sculptures depicted the 10 largest cities that the Pennsylvania Railroad served in 1895. Detroit, St. Louis, Baltimore, New York, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia, and Cincinnati. That station you're looking at burned to the ground in 1923. When it did, they saved the marble reliefs. They moved them to the 30th Street station in Philadelphia, where you can see them today. But more importantly, they saved the 10 terracotta sculptures. When they did, they said, what are we going to do with these monstrosities? And somebody said, send them to the applicable city. So Cincinnati got theirs sent to them in 1923. The local Pennsylvania Railroad guy said, what are we going to do with this monstrosity? And somebody said, stick it on the retaining wall, holding up underneath the pedestrian walkway at the Torrance Street station. So that's what they did in 1923. 1933 rolls around. The station is only about 45 years old. They tear it down. Why did they tear it down in 1933? Depression? No. Floods? This has flooded before? No. They tore it down because a magnificent station called Cincinnati Union Terminal opened in 1933 over on Western Avenue. The whole purpose of that beautiful Art Deco building to be built was to consolidate the 7 railroads that came into Cincinnati at the time. At the time, Cincinnati was a bottleneck. B&O, New York Central, C&O, all these Southern Railway, all these different railroads came in to 7 different terminals downtown. And you couldn't connect from one to the other. It's a bottleneck. They would flood. They'd be underwater half the time when the river would flood. So they started in 1919 working with City Council and the 7 railroads to come up with a magnificent terminal and where to build it. It took them until 1930 to decide what to do. That's how dysfunctional everybody was. And in 1933, Cincinnati Union Terminal opened. And that's why it is the last of the great terminals in the United States, because railroad passenger service had already started to decline by the time it opened. It was a white elephant by the time it opened, believe it or not. But if you've never seen that station and toured it, go over and do it. It's the gem of Cincinnati. But back to our story. So they tear this station down in 1933. Fast forward about 80 years. We start the dinner train in 2009. Some locals come to me and say, if you go down to Eastern Avenue to St. Rose's Church, go up the path behind the old station onto the tracks and look behind 80 years of garbage and debris and bushes on that side of the train, you'll see something out of the Mayan temples. I came down on a Saturday morning and did that and found this sculpture. And I went home, got all my tools, came back, chainsaws, and cleared it all out. I'm going to turn the lights off so you can see it better. But it's going to be on the left side. You see some rusted marks where the bridge went through, where the was attached to the top where the pedestrian walkway went through. And you notice there are 2 guys that are depicted there. The 2 guys that are depicted are Major Benjamin Stites and his brother Hezekiah that we talked about earlier, the original founders of this area. Now, SORTA owns that. The Southern Ohio Regional Transit Authority owns that. They own this track that's next to us. For you Ohioans, you know there's a rails to trails that went from Cleveland to Columbus to Cincinnati. And it's supposed to end at Smale Park downtown. The last 4 miles is not done. This is where they want to put it right here. They've lost their funding for now because there's been a lot of kickback about it. We don't care. We've been involved in the negotiations. We don't care if they put it there or not. We win both ways because if they put it there, it exposes us to that many more people. But we personally told them we don't feel it's right to put the rails to trails there because it's not wise to have Daddy teaching his 8-year-old daughter to ride a bike 8 foot from a moving locomotive. So for now, it's not been done. Now the Cincinnati Historical Society's been on our train several times. They're very interested in saving that sculpture because it's a really rare piece of Cincinnati history. But you can't very easily take 100-year-old terracotta off of concrete very easily. So for now, that's where it stands. And it's the highlight of us, so we hope it stays for a long time. And that, my friends, is your history lesson tonight.
All the prep and everything. I'm the full-time employee chef, so I do just about everything as far as getting it all together.
So you cater for how many people?
So we did 141 nights actually. And we do dinner service in about.
I think I'm famous tonight. This is the silver sword. Yeah, silver sword. Okay. Is that the only one that has two tables for two?
Yeah, the 201 has 2 booths that are two tops, and then we have 2 booths back here that are two tops, and then yeah, everything else is a 4 top.
Thank you.